You are now tuned in to the Lineman Lounge, the world's thickest sports podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Evo.
Como están, bitches? Welcome into the Lineman Lounge on a beautiful Sunday. It is Easter. I am tired as all get out because kids are up early. I was up late, but we are back. We are ready to talk a lot more football. We're going to get into some guys that have caused a ton of disruption in the NFL, DNs and D linemen on today's show. But before we start diving into all the shit that we got to talk about, Evo, tell me how your day's going, man. I have been, I went to sleep at 2:30ish because I started cooking Easter dinner around 2 o'clock. Got a brisket smoking on the grill right now. But I'm incredibly tired. So tell me how you're doing, brother.
Oh, well, I just rolled out of bed a little bit ago, you know.
Hell yeah.
Nice things. It's a lot earlier here in Arizona, albeit it is still 10 a.m. Yeah, I've just kind of been chilling in bed all morning because that's how I hail Jesus or praise Jesus or whatever that way. I don't have to do the egg stuff right now. But yeah, we're planning on apparently cooking some ribs. I'm messaging the lady right now because she can't find them at the store.
That's a problem.
I told her she was in charge of dinner tonight, and then I'm cooking apparently. So, yeah, she's looking for ribs and can't find anything. So we'll see how that goes. But other than that, man, this is going to be a chill day for me today. I think she's heading off to the church or something a little bit later, and might be doing a little bit of a hike. Other than that, yeah, just chilling and having a chill weekend as normal.
Very, very nice. Yeah, I am. I smell like a fucking man's man right now, dude. I smell
Smoky.
like smoked meats, just getting it. So I'm very excited. It's the first time I've done a brisket. I'm nervous to see how it turns out, but I'm also very pumped if it comes out really good. It may be something I do a little bit more. But I will probably try to get a little extra sleep. Luckily, I was up late last night anyways because I was watching the UFC. Gotta turn that fuck down. But yeah, man, UFC fights were great last night. And we're gonna talk about some of those really badass fights a little later on, but we're gonna start with youth sports. The Lineman Lounge youth baseball team out here in Menor that we are sponsoring had our first couple practices. And dude, we're gonna be pretty goddamn good, I think. These boys took right to the coaching. They did not shy away from working hard on the first couple of days. We'll see if that continues on, but I am very encouraged by the way the first couple of practices went. I think that they will represent us well. It also helps that I am their coach, so I can kind of instill some of those things that I want us to do. And a lot of kids, when they are playing youth baseball, they have some coaches who have great intentions, but maybe don't know the most about the game because they're just a couple of dads. I'm very excited for this, and I'm excited to see where the season goes.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. Head coaching is a lot, especially with everything you got going on. So hopefully you're able to balance that well.
So I've been working on it. I've actually made sure that I've created practice plans to ensure that we have a kind of a set goal for each practice going forward. We're not just flying by the seat of our pants, which is something that I am typically known to do. But I want to make sure that I'm giving these kids the best chance to succeed and grow as players. So we got practice plans all scheduled out. I sent them out to my coaches so everybody's on the same page. But we still got a ways to go before we're ready for opening day. We're going to have a doubleheader. Opening day is going to be May 6th. Nice. So we're gonna have some work to do, but elsewhere, I mean, baseball's been going on. Guardians, pretty good. Your Twins, red hot start, brother. How you feeling?
They're doing good as well. They're the Guardians of 2023, apparently.
I don't know about the Guardians of 2023, but maybe 2022.
Mm-hmm. But I'm more so joking about that. They are having a good start. I'm proud of them so far. I've watched a little bit, mostly highlights and cut-ups and stuff like that. But again, hearing great things about the pitch clock, that it is moving the games along, making it much more interesting. And I can't complain with how they've been playing. They started off 4-0, I believe, and are 5-2 now, I think, or something like that. So they're doing pretty good. Happy with my Twins. And it actually is probably going to. I mean, they're trying to work out a streaming deal right now to get the Twins available to stream. So
Yeah,
if they're
so
able to do that, I'm definitely going to try to watch more.
we're having some issues. I mean, so right now we're still on Bally's Great Lakes, but with all the things that are going on with Bally's in the small regional sports markets, there's some bad shit that's probably going to happen. I think they have like an additional 10 days at this point to get their money paid to the teams that they owe. But they've already filed bankruptcy. So I don't know how that's going to work out for the rest of the season. This is another reason that Major League Baseball really needs to move into more of a national branding with their television rights, kind of like the NFL does, because the regional local markets for baseball, we see, I mean, this is not the first time this has happened. These small regional networks are great, and that you can bring in people who have a little bit better, understanding of your local team, but you're just not going to get the kind of reach and exposure that you could normally get, like with you when you have these national TV deals, like an NBA or an NFL has.
Yeah, I was used to always growing up watching Twins on Fox Sports. Like it was always Fox Sports, and then sometime after I left Minnesota, joined the Army, it switched over to Bally's.
Yeah,
and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And obviously they're running into these issues now. So
yeah, so
nationalize it a little bit more, and realistically, just doing that. What we've talked about before with all these places, just one streaming platform where you can go and like just pay for just your team type thing. That makes the most sense for the individual fan. If you have that as an option at a relatively cheap rate compared to paying for something like an NFL Sunday ticket where you're paying for all sorts of stuff, like have your team available, it makes fans happy.
Yeah, so I did MLTV in the past when I was in Arizona because I couldn't watch Guardians games. But I mean, it's pricey, but it's not NFL Sunday ticket pricey. It's not $500 for the damn season. It was like $100 for the year for watch every game for your team. You can't watch all the other ones. But that was fine. I didn't need to watch, every goddamn baseball game that was on TV. I just needed to see the Guardians. So
yeah, for sure.
But that would make sense. But let's move off of baseball, man. A lot of season left, so we're not going to get too wrapped around that. But today is a big day in the world of golf. Masters are going on, and honestly, this is a very interesting situation that's starting to play out in fucking Augusta, because right now we've got Brooks Koepka, huge personality, was one of those big personalities that the PGA Tour was selling for a very, very long time. And then Brooks makes the jump. He goes over to LIV. Now a LIV golfer is on top of the leaderboard at the Masters going into Sunday. It's great for Brooks. I'm glad he's playing well, man, because like I started watching the documentary on Netflix about the PGA Tour season. He was really, really struggling. I'm pumped that he's playing well, but this is a bad look for the PGA, I think, and it's going to be an interesting thing how this works out, because the PGA is not going to want LIV golfers to come in and win their fucking majors.
Yeah. So I've been watching all up to today. I haven't watched today yet. It's just kind of getting kicked off for some of the lower contestants, not the main groupings yet. Yesterday got cut short because of a lot of bad weather, a lot of rain, course was kind of flooding. And then the day before, they kept on having suspensions of play because of high winds and stuff like that, to the point that trees came down and almost smacked some fans. So it was pretty intense there. But so far, it's been a really good Masters. A lot of good storylines. The funny thing is that the coverages that you can watch out there, they are not focusing on any of the LIV golfers.
No.
So them having Brooks in there in the lead, you keep on hearing them. They'll say, "Oh, Brooks is so and so far under," blah blah blah, and then they'll get right off them to the people who are chasing them, John Rahm, Victor Hovland, those guys, and then they're not showing any of the guys from LIV. Like I kept on having to go online to look and see, wait, are these, Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickelson, those guys even playing? Which they are or were. I mean, Phil's still in it. I don't know if DJ's still playing or not. I believe he probably is. But either way, they are doing their best to not focus on that. And it isn't really working out for him because obviously Brooks is in the lead. So Brooks is 11 under right now. Rahm is close behind at 9 under. He double bogeyed his first hole of the entire match, and then from there went on to go.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
he's
9
been
under for the day, or after that. So he was 7 under at the end of it, or something like that. I don't know. He's close on his heels, and Rahm is phenomenal. So I
I
expect
love
him to
Rom.
make this
Rom's a
real
good
close.
damn golfer.
But they haven't started yet. They start at 11:33 a.m. I believe, my time. So they should be starting shortly.
Yeah, so it's going to be 2:33 if you're out on the East Coast, which is where I'm at. So we got about an hour and 15 minutes before they kick off the Sunday day for the Masters. Man, I hope that Brooks can hold on, but I've also seen Brooks collapse on Sundays on multiple occasions, and John Rahm will absolutely take advantage of that if that happens. But the storyline here for me is this is a PGA versus a live thing right now. Because, like you said, they're not showing live golfers, and then they've got a live golfer in the lead, and they're really not talking about him. They're talking about the people chasing him. Live's not going anywhere, and this battle is not even close to being done.
That's I don't necessarily dislike Koepka that much.
I mean, he's a dick, but he's my kind of asshole. Brooks is my kind of asshole. Like, I like that.
He's a bit of a prick and things like that. And when he was part of PGA, like, I didn't necessarily root for him, but I wasn't upset if he went out and won or did well or anything like that. And then going over to live, I don't have a problem with that. I would like to see some guys that I like a little bit more win, but for the sake of seeing what this is going to do to golf, I do want to see him kind of take it today to shake things up and watch the PGA be like, it's basically John Rahm that won. But I mean, like,
it was kind of John Rahm. I mean, John Rahm was the best of us, so
yeah. And then you immediately, I mean, there's questions about on the first day whether or not a penalty should have been incurred by Brooks. I don't know if you saw anything about that, about him advancing the ball or something like that. It's a pretty normal practice what happened as far as like the ball gets placed.
There was a Morikawa incident and there was the Brooks incident.
Mm-hmm. There's only one that you're hearing about though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because Morikawa is a PGA guy. He did everything within the rules. There was I saw some people saying, hey, even if you did everything right, call the official over there and just make sure that everything goes by the book. Sure. Fine. But Colin Morikawa is a smart guy. He knows the rules. So does Brooks, and I don't think Brooks is a cheater. I think he actually has he's overly integrable. Is that a word? Integrable? I don't fucking know.
I don't think so.
I'm just going to make that one up.
Integrities.
Yeah, he's got lots of integrities. A little too much so sometimes. That's kind of what makes him kind of a prick. And I don't think he would cheat, so.
We'll see. But that's definitely something that I'm going to definitely have that pulled up on the TV here once we're done with the show. I'm not going to run it while we're doing the show because I'm doing deep dive internet connection stuff right now to make sure that I can go after my ISP for having bad ping issues.
Yeah, deep dive internet issues. And also, I feel like we would get in trouble for watching video and things like that while we're on the show. We don't want any copyright issues. And we would never steal any kind of TV or pay-per-view.
Absolutely not. And
then, talking about that,
to be completely clear, I do have all the ESPN Plus, Disney Plus, that whole Hulu package and everything, so I'm able to watch all that stuff without a problem. I do pay for all that, as I do pay for everything, including things like UFC.
Yeah, so let's talk about UFC. Because there was a big ass card last night, and there were some really good fights on here, but everybody was talking about it. Adesanya, Pereira, 2 or 4, whichever one, 2 in the UFC, but their 4th time fighting. Adesanya comes out on top, and it looked like Pereira was going to go to work early again. And then we find out, as he talks about it afterwards, playing a little possum, baiting Pereira in, letting him start to try to tee off until he finds his shot and absolutely starches Pereira. I didn't think that Izzy had that. I know he's got a lot of pop, but not that kind of pop, because Pereira is a very large, well-built dude who can take it on the chin, but Izzy absolutely slept him. I was not expecting that. We've seen Israel Adesanya kind of turn into a guy who will just piece you up over 5 rounds, pick you apart, and not necessarily going to absolutely light you up. But that was exciting to see.
Yeah, Adesanya's game for the longest time was that he can just kind of sit back, get a majority of the hits. He doesn't have to worry about going at the knockout or anything. He's the champion, or was at the time, and is again. Or was the champion. You could just kind of, it made it a little bit more boring. You could see how technical he was with things, but he wasn't going for it because he didn't really need to. He was able to sit back. He was, I mean, quite frankly, he was just dominant over the guys that he was going against, and he didn't have to put out as much effort, it seemed like, because he could play that passive sort of fight game. And when it came to Pereira, obviously Pereira knocked him out twice. Kickboxing got after him, and then Izzy lost the belt to him most recently. But this time Izzy went in with kind of a different game plan. It was way more aggressive than we're used to seeing from him through those first 2 rounds. And then I wasn't sure that I saw what I saw with that knockout until they did the replays. And it was for sure, I was like, okay, Izzy got a couple shots in, and then all of a sudden he just kind of stopped and leaned back against the cage, put his arms up in a defensive position, and then Pereira started teeing off on him, and I was like, why did he just stop his advance? And then as soon as Pereira was like, oh, this guy's not doing anything other than defending, he loosened up, he opened up, and gave Izzy the perfect shot for that knockout. So it was a good feint there by Izzy to get him to put his guard down, which means we're definitely seeing this fight happen again.
Yeah, so I actually asked you this immediately upon following the fight last night. How long before we see the third one? 3 to 6 months is kind of what the consensus is. Now, obviously, these guys have fought a lot. It's going to be interesting to see how quickly they are to make another one. I think because you have to do it again. They fought 4 times. Pereira is 3-1. Now they're 1-1 in the UFC. You got to have a trilogy. But does this matchup become stale if we force it in, 5 to 6 months from now? Or do we want to toss another name in there, let each one of these guys beat up somebody else, and then send them right back?
It's tough to say. I mean, with Pereira, when you get knocked out, I think that they do have like a standard amount of time that you have to wait before you can fight again. Adesanya doesn't look like he took a whole bunch of damage from this fight, so I would expect that he could do another title defense in another 3 months or so. So he might get another one before he faces Pereira again. But we're definitely, I think, seeing this in the next 6 months or so. I would think that give it 6 months, maybe, depending on if Izzy gets another fight in there, maybe 9 months. But I think that they're going to try to, before the end of 2023, have these guys go at it again.
Yeah, I think that, it's going to sell. We obviously paid for it.
Yes.
So,
Always.
Yep, always. I love this. Thank you for this comment. So yeah, I did say it was going to be a second round knockout last night, or it was either going to be a knockout in the second round, or it was going to go all 5. What Carlton very graciously left out there is I said it was going to be a knockout by Pereira in the second round, or it was going to go all 5 and Izzy was going to win. So I got parts and pieces of it right, but it was a great fight, man. For as long as it lasted, first round feeling out process exactly like fight 1, and then they started to open up. And as soon as Pereira felt like he had that opening, that Izzy just walked him right into that trap. It was great, man. Loved it.
And the fights leading up to that fight were pretty good too. I mean, the Masvidal Gilbert Burns, it was probably the end of Masvidal's career. I thought, I texted you, I was like, hey, I just put some money on Masvidal. I feel like maybe he's going to be there in Miami and have his kind of last hurrah. And It really wasn't the case. And I knew it as soon as I put the money down, and I texted you and I said, this is probably a bad idea. I was like, last time I watched Jorge, I remember telling myself he's kind of cooked. You can see him getting tired and just.
And that doesn't happen to Jorge. That never really happened to Jorge. Jorge was always game. I mean, his name is Game Bread for a reason. That man
Yeah.
will walk into a ring and he can stand there with anybody and fight. He showed up 2 days before a Kamaru Usman fight, coming in late notice, and made it through the entire fucking fight. Like the man will stand there and bang with anybody. But you could see, like he didn't have the love. He said as much after the fight was over in the interview with Joe Rogan. He just didn't love it anymore, and I'm glad that he's getting out with a boatload of money.
Yeah, he was saying, he's like, you watch baseball, your favorite pitcher is going to lose some of their heat. Your favorite quarterback in the NFL is going to not have the same cannon after 20 years. And he's like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm not the same. I'm not the same as when I started. And he's like, I made more money than I ever could have thought coming from nothing. So it kind of seemed like one of those pre-retirement type speeches or a retirement type speech without fully saying like, I'm just done. So we'll see. I don't know that the UFC is going to give him much more unless who's the guy that he roughed up allegedly outside of the ring?
Colby Covington.
Yeah, that's the one that
Covington.
he actually talked on Rogan about how he would murder him in the ring if he got a chance, and that is very personal.
So they have fought, and Colby beat him because Colby's a really good wrestler.
It was right after that when
he
Hospital went after
maybe
him,
found allegedly. Yep, let's make sure we say allegedly. Allegedly found Colby Covington in a restaurant and knocked out a couple of his fucking teeth.
Yeah. So, and I know that George wants that. He wants that fight again. I don't know that it's going to go his way, but when it gets personal like that, guys kind of can do shit beyond their level. So I don't know that it will.
I think he's done fighting. I think
the legal
he's
stuff is still
done.
going on, so they can't. But
I would imagine that the only thing that would pull him out of retirement, because he's retired, the only thing that would pull him out of retirement would be a shot at Colby Covington. But I don't think he would want to fight Colby Covington on a UFC stage again. You toss him and Colby Covington in a boxing ring where they can promote the hell out of it, and Jorge feels like he has the upper hand, you can easily pull Jorge back out for that. But another UFC fight, I think that ship has sailed. He's probably done. And it was a great career. It was very, very quick the last 2 years, and the amount of exposure this man got. But he cashed in, and I'm happy for him, man. Get your paper wherever you can get it, no matter how you can get it. And especially if you're talking the fight game, get out when you are still healthy and you've made your money.
Yep. Leading up to that, we had a couple other knockouts, which were awesome fights. The Rob Font, Adrian Yanez in round 1.
Dude, Rob Font is back, bro.
Old man showing it to the kid, dude. It was great. He looked real good. And I was banging the table as soon as I saw that little bit of opening on Yanez. I kept on yelling, take it, push it, because that you could see he was rocked. And then Font obviously did fucking knock him the fuck out.
Finishes it, man. Yeah, Rob Font is a great fighter. He's still top 5, I think he's ranked. Did great work last night. And Rob Font was not supposed to win that. That was a setup fight for a new, young, up-and-coming fighter to take out a guy who's been in the division for a long time, top 5, and propel him up the ranks to go and get a title. Rob Font had other fucking ideas, though. Like, he is still a guy who is going to try to compete at the highest level in that division and win a title. So, good for Rob. But there is another kid that I want to talk about that had a ton of hype coming in the start of the fight, and it was interesting to say the least. 18 years old, young man, and I got to pull his name back up here.
Raul Rosas.
Yeah, I almost called him Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso, because there was some confusion about how his name was pronounced last night in our house. But yeah, Rosas. So the kid can wrestle his ass off. He's a very good wrestler. I don't know that he can do much of anything else, but he's still very young to the fight game and has an opportunity to grow a lot. But he stepped into the ring thinking that he was going to just out wrestle the shit out of people like a Ben Askren, and it did not work. Hopefully, this kid has some good people around him and can get him going in the right direction. He's got to work on more parts of his game, but he's 18, 19 years old. He's going to be around for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. And we also had the Kevin Holland, Santiago Ponzinibbio. I don't know if I said that right.
I think it's Ponzinibbio. I think you got it
Ponzinibbio.
right.
That fight was pretty cool too. It looked like a pretty close fight. I was thinking Kevin Holland probably had the upper hand, but he ended up getting that knockout at the end and went straight over to former President Donald Trump and Dana White and had a quick convo.
I wish I could be a fly on the wall for that, because I feel like there were some things that might have been said in that conversation that maybe Trump did or did not love. And because have you ever heard Kevin Holland talk before?
Here and there.
Yeah, he's a very interesting cat. And I don't think he has a problem letting his opinions be known. So
no, he likes to talk. He loves to talk, whether he's in the octagon or outside of the octagon. Kevin Holland likes to talk. I mean, they talked about in the first round when they were sitting there sparring, and then Kevin Holland goes, "Y'all smell weed?"
Yeah, like
the commentators are like, "And we do smell the weed in here."
Yeah. Yeah, he's a fun guy. It was a good fight. I don't know how I expected it to go. What I thought was interesting is that you look at the tail of the tape, and they said that Kevin Holland was only like 2 inches taller than Ponzinibbio. He looked like he was a good 6 inches fucking taller.
Yeah,
he is so long, man.
Longer.
Yeah, he's just so
the reach
long.
for sure. The reach for sure.
But
overall, it's a pretty good fight card. Pretty,
it was good
card. It was it's always fun to see knockouts. We had multiple knockouts, so that was well worth the asking price and what we had to pay to watch that.
All right. Well, so we were going to move on to the NFL, but we actually kind of got a comment in one of the Facebook posts. Have you paid any attention at all to the XFL this year?
Very passively. I know that Ben DiNucci is doing fantastic things out there. Having himself a good run. I believe they're still undefeated. Is it the St. Louis Battlehawks that he's part of, or?
The Battlehawks are. Let me see if they're undefeated. I don't think that they are. I don't know if anybody's undefeated anymore, because I believe the DC Defenders were the last undefeated team. Let me pull up the XFL standings here. Yeah, not something I was prepared
DC
for.
DC Defenders are 6-1. Battlehawks are 6-2.
Okay.
I don't remember whoever DiNucci was a part of. They had been running.
Well, so we actually had a comment from friend of the show, has heard our show. I was really hoping to try to work some deals with this man back when he was at iHeart. George Allen, he is a leader of the DC Defenders group, and was asking what our take on tonight's game is. Listen, I'm going DC. They were the best. They've been the best team in the league all year. They dropped a tough one last week. They're going to go out to Seattle, get another big dub, bounce back, get ready, get rolling to get ready for these XFL playoffs, where I expect that they will probably take the championship based on the things that I've seen. They're the best team in the league. But George, thanks for watching. Thanks for thinking of us. Appreciate your time. And hey, I know you're not at iHeart anymore, George. He's now at St. Jude's. Was very lucky to be able to interview him on the other podcast that I do. But if you got any connections at iHeart still that are maybe looking to endorse a couple of dummy thick idiots, we're available. So
absolutely.
All right.
We don't watch as much of the XFL as we probably should, because it actually has done pretty well for itself this year. For first year kind of restarting back up, having a lot of big names in there, former NFL guys and stuff like that, has been making it very interesting.
I love the story. God, and I just forgot the fucking quarterback's name. Playing for his boys, took less money.
McCarron.
Thank you.
AJ McCarron.
AJ McCarron. I don't know how I blanked on his name. I love that story. Like, you could sit on the bench in the NFL and make a lot more money, but if you're trying to create memories with your sons and you playing, the XFL is beautiful for that. There's going to be a couple of guys at certain positions that are going to be able to make a move from the XFL to the NFL. There's going to be a little bit of leeway there. That quarterback, I don't know that's one of them. I don't know that we're going to see a McCarron back or a DiNucci back in the NFL again. But, you can find some offensive linemen. There's always a struggle for depth for offensive line in the NFL. Same thing with defensive backs. Like those things can actually get you a chance in the NFL. So I love the XFL. I need to watch much, much more. I'm gonna have to actually go check out this DC Defenders backers bar that George is kind of a part of, because it sounds like it's just a lit ass time.
Absolutely. And it was the Seattle Sea Dragons is who Benanucci's playing for. He's got Josh Gordon out there wide for him to be throwing to. So that's the Sea Dragons and the Defenders playing tonight, I believe.
Yes, they are playing tonight. I got the Defenders. Give me the Defenders all day.
All righty.
But all right. So I got nothing else MMA. I got nothing else PGA. I don't think there's much of anything else going on other than what the hell's
NBA,
going on in the
we
NFL.
got the play-in
Yeah,
stuff,
the
is
play-in.
going to be going on.
I don't understand the fucking play-in format still. Just give me the goddamn top 8 teams from each conference. Or if you really want to make it interesting, give me the top 16, regardless of what conference they're in. Give me the 16 best records. That is a tournament that I could fucking watch. This random ass, 6 through 12 at the bottom of the damn divisions. I don't care. I just want to know. The Cavs are already in. I don't know why we're doing the play-in tournament because it's not any different. They're still playing 82 games. We're just calling the regular season a different goddamn name. And I hate that because it reminds me of being in the Army. We're going to say it's one thing, but we'll call it another so it doesn't sound like we're doing the thing that we're actually doing. It's so dumb. You're just playing the regular season.
It's allowing my Wolves come in as the 9th seed, so.
Yeah, I mean, good for you guys. I'm happy that you'll, I guess, have a chance. But if you would just play out the regular season and win enough games, then you would have a chance. I don't understand the play-in.
Yeah,
it's got to be a marketing thing. Like they've got to. I haven't.
Oh, for sure. It creates a different excitement in the regular season. That's the thing is, and I think we've said this before, is that the NBA regular season is kind of whatever. It's the playoffs and the championship is what people really tune in to watch. So extending what would be the playoff atmosphere into the regular season is absolutely a financial benefit for them.
If you give me the top 16 teams across the entire NBA, then every goddamn game counts as well, instead of just your conference. I'm just tossing that out there, NBA. Do what you will with it. I wish the NFL would do the same goddamn thing. But let's switch over and talk about the NFL now.
Well, I was going to say, speaking about the financials of this stuff and sports business, do you want to shamelessly plug anything?
I will absolutely shamelessly plug. So new podcast will be coming out. We're going to release every Wednesday. The new show is going to be called Inside the Business of Sports. It is going to be me as my official title is the executive producer of the show. But I will also be a small personality on there. But it's going to feature one of my professors, Professor Jim Kaler. We call him Professor K. Been in the sports business game for a long, long time. Spent a good portion of his career with the Cavs and then switched over to academia at Arizona State, University of Ohio, and now at Cleveland State. And yeah, man, it's fun. We've gotten, I think we've done 7 interviews now with some other people in the sports business industry from, things in sustainability, facility management. George Allen was on the show for iHeart talking the media side of the business of sports. So it's been great so far. It won't be live, so you'll get a new episode every week from us starting on Wednesday. Thank you for letting me hop in there and plug all of that. And this is kind of a crazy thing. I realized the other day, I'm actually paid to be a podcaster now because I work for Cleveland State. So that's kind of a dope thing to realize. So yeah, it's awesome. And I'm excited for this show to launch and see where we can take it to.
Absolutely. That's awesome, man. But yeah, with that, we can go ahead and jump into the NFL. So there's not a ton of new storylines going on this week. We're obviously going to have our breakdown of some draft prospects as we get closer and closer to April 27th. But the one thing that did kind of come out, I guess 2 things surrounding the Arizona Cardinals. Apparently they're going to do a new uniform out there.
Super important. I think this is the move that is going to really elevate them over the top, and that this is in no way a cover to hide up any improprieties that could possibly be going on with inside the organization. We're not jingling something shiny in front of a toddler.
Yeah, and to be fair, a uniform change and rebrand like that is probably something that's been in the works and in motion for a while. But
Yeah.
you have bigger priorities to take care of, especially as far as where we're going to spend our financial, resources. Maybe the player survey where it says like you're one of the worst in the league, you're terrible to your players and stuff like that. Better practice facilities, better locker rooms, maybe giving your players food,
inviting their families in, improving
like
our
that.
report card from F's basically across the board.
Yeah.
Fuck C's. C's are a marked improvement.
Yeah. You could probably do something like that. Not to mention, they kind of cleaned house except for Michael Bidwell, the owner, this offseason. Steve Keim, the GM, had a bunch of issues in years past, DUIs and things like that. The coaching situation, it seemed like the coach was a little bit more worried about having fancy houses and jet setting with his, woman or women, or I don't know, and make sure he always had those sunglasses on. Well, they cleaned house and they got rid of all that shit, but they brought in Jonathan Gannon, who is a defensive coordinator that seems like there's already a lot of players that are kind of like, I'm not so sure about him from previous teams and things like that. And then they have this new report come out from Terry McDonough, who, was a VP for the Cardinals in the past, and basically he did a open letter, I believe, to the NFL. Let's see. I'll read this.
Some pretty serious goddamn things.
Arizona Cardinals owner Michael Bidwell is accused of gross misconduct, including cheating, discrimination, and harassment in an arbitration claim filed Tuesday by former Cardinals executive Terry McDonough to the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. Now, the Cardinals responded and basically said that these are outlandish claims and blah, 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 and that it's sad that, Terry, we stuck by Terry's side when he was going through a lot of personal issues and things like that, and now he's just trying to do a money grab. But when you look at some of the claims that he's talking about, having burner phones and things like that to be able to talk to Steve Keim while he was serving a 5-week suspension, and that he still has the phone, and that Steve Wilkes, who also is part of, I believe, a suit against the NFL for discrimination, also had a phone, and he still has the messages and stuff like that. When you have physical evidence and you're willing to offer that forward,
when you bring in the receipts,
it's kind of tough to say that it's outlandish if you got it. So obviously could be all made up, but I don't think that he's going to go this far if he doesn't actually have some stuff.
Yeah, he won't go this far if he doesn't have anything, because, that makes him look bad. This is going to make him look bad anyways, right? This precludes him from getting a job in the NFL probably ever again.
Probably.
The owners are not going to bring him in because, now I'm not going to say that every owner is doing shady shit, but I would be willing to bet that there are a large portion of owners that like to test the flexibility of the lot of rules.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot that NFL teams do that could be bending the rules, breaking the rules, things like that, but it'll never be known about if it's kept in-house.
Right. And this guy is now proving that if you bring him in and you're doing something and you maybe fuck him over or he doesn't like the way things end, that he will not keep things in-house. So he's done. Like, his career in the NFL is probably 100% over, and he knows that, but he's bringing enough heat that he's going to get paid. Something is going to happen in a positive way for him, because he's essentially thrown his career away in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's a shame that we're saying that, but collusion in the NFL is not something that is just new. Like, it's been going on at different levels for a very long time. So he's got evidence. And I want to hear what Cardinals fans think about all the shit that is happening around this team. I wish Spicy Mike would hop in the comments and let us know.
Yeah, I think it's from what I can tell from most people is that they're kind of like, yeah, okay, just another thing, just throw it on now. Let's add some gasoline to this dumpster fire that's already happening, burn it down, so that will hopefully we can get over it and start over again. Like people don't necessarily seem surprised. I'm really anxious to see what the fallout from this is going to be, though, for the team because
This
you
is
you
tons of draft
have
picks.
you have stuff like the Miami Dolphins, potentially talking to Brady when they shouldn't have, and they lost a first round pick. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not even talking about all the other improprieties that they've been accused of and that they're being looked into as far as, discrimination and things like that. They, they're lost a first round pick just for trying to talk to Brady and stuff when they shouldn't have. If we're talking about collusion, cheating, all these different things, I mean, there's going to be a heavy financial penalty. I think, we're talking more than a first round pick and draft compensation being
I
lost.
think we're looking at over $1 million. What did Ursay get? Ursay got $1 million, and they lost a third when they had the incident with the like him drunk driving, which is not. I mean, it's illegal. It didn't hurt anybody, but they weren't cheating. That was just a personal conduct thing, right? I want to say it was somewhere in that range, like $1 million and like a third round pick. This is going to be way bigger than that. This is going to be bigger than a Robert Kraft penalty. This is going to be bigger than the Dolphins' first round pick penalty. If
Absolutely.
you're talking, I mean, collusion, cheating, harassment, and you're using fucking spycraft to talk to somebody who is suspended. That is insane to me.
Yeah. I had brought it up before, but I mean, if it's bad enough, this is grounds for the league to technically force
a
Bidwell to
sale.
sell the team.
75% is what they would need to force him out.
And I guarantee you that someone would snatch the Cardinals up real quick because Phoenix is a good market. There's a lot of wealthy people in the Phoenix area. And for all the issues that say like a Washington Commanders team has, the Cardinals are in much better shape. They actually have a decent stadium with a bad culture in a good area. Not that Washington's necessarily a terrible area, but it's cold. It's not necessarily the best. Like, yeah, you're close to the capital, but there's a lot of rough areas.
You have to
around there.
You have to build a new fucking stadium if you buy the Washington Commanders.
If you're buying the team, you have bad culture, bad team. You might need to change out your coaches.
$1 billion in a stadium as well,
and a new stadium. Yeah. So a Cardinals sale that would sell quick, and probably for more than the Commanders. I would assume. So Bidwell would make out fine.
I think it would depend on who's buying them. Bidwell would do okay, but I think that seeing some reports, apparently Jeff Bezos may be allowed to be in on the Commander sale. I am very surprised. I was shocked when I saw the report come out that said, you know what, that he would not have a problem with him buying the Commanders. And I thought there was no way, based on all the things that have come out in the Washington Post, and Dan Snyder and the Commanders being complete shitheads. And yeah, I don't know. They could easily force him to sell if it is this as bad as it could possibly be. But if they don't make Dan Snyder sell, do we expect that they're going to make Bidwell sell?
With the Dan Snyder stuff, I mean, they've talked about, well, he's talked about how he's got dirt on people and blah, 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 and could,
bury the league.
Things up in the league. Bidwell doesn't seem to be doing that so far because I don't know that he thinks that his job is that close to being on the line, but I don't think it's out of the question. The hard evidence like they are going to have now against Bidwell during this whole situation is a lot different than these investigations and reports that have come up with stuff, but not necessarily as firm of evidence, I guess, against, Snyder. I mean, it seems pretty blatantly obvious what's going on with Dan Snyder, but either way, the Cardinals are in a bit of a tumultuous situation. If you're a Cardinals fan, these next couple of years could be real rough. I mean, I honestly would expect a first round, potentially multiple first rounds to be gone. multiple picks, fines, a lot of stuff. And you're
if
in a
all
point
of that
right
is
now.
happening, you have they hired a coach that people are not sold on immediately. Nope. They might not have picks. They have a quarterback who you and I are not sold on, and I think a lot of people are starting to get off the Kyler Murray train. That this job becomes almost unsellable to somebody who is trying to legitimately go somewhere and win. Head coaching candidates will not go there. The report card was terrible. All the facility stuff is terrible. The culture's not good. A quarterback who people aren't sold on with a crazy contract. You could be losing first-round draft picks. Like the Arizona Cardinals and their fan base are in for a long haul here in the near future.
Yeah. I'll say it this way. There's an opportunity for them to have a rebirth in Phoenix, like a phoenix.
Like, thank you.
If
Phoenix
they have,
rising from the ashes.
If they have a new ownership come in, and I don't think that Bidwell is going to get pushed out, but if we're talking 2-3 years down the line, they push them out. New ownership comes in and they completely change that culture. You'll be getting done with the Kyler Murray contract and stuff like that. It could be a nice blank slate for someone to be able to come in, especially if they're able to make some good acquisitions here in the next couple of years. But when you're in the middle of this essentially a rebuild, it is not a good time to lose picks.
No, this is the worst possible time to lose picks at this point. But
it's going to make it even more likely that they want to trade out of that third spot.
No, yeah, I was on a space the other day. Shout out to the guys at On the Clock. There is a team, and you brought this up, and I'm putting it out there in the universe for everybody to hear it that I can talk to. The Cardinals want the most picks they could possibly get. There's a team sitting back at 24 that would be very interested in moving up.
It depends on how you consider the draft order because of Miami. But yeah.
Okay.
I actually what you're talking about is something that I am very hard up on. I want the Vikings to move up to get Anthony Richardson. Pick number 3, I think, is the smartest spot to get him because I expect him to be gone by pick 4, if not pick 3 from someone else moving up. And I was mentioned on a big Minnesota sports podcast this week. I had posed the question to them. They loved my use of the word titillating in the question. Apparently first time they've said it on the show. I can link that to people that might want to check it out. But I had brought up the possibility of us moving up to the 3rd pick to get an Anthony Richardson. They weren't big up on it just because of the amount of assets that we'd have to move.
Oh, yeah, you'd have to move mountains, dude.
Yeah. But I think that's the sort of move that you have to make if you want to find a long-term franchise quarterback, unless you're just hoping to get lucky. So I'm all for it. We can replace a couple of those first-round picks for the Cardinals if they end up losing them. I'm willing to do it.
I hear you. Man, I misspoke. I'm very, very tired. Very, 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 very tired. Cooking this fucking brisket all goddamn night. I said over the clock. That was wrong. I said on the clock. That's also wrong. Off the clock. The guys over at Off the Clock. I'm really sorry. I didn't go to bed until 2 o'clock this morning. Then I had to help find Easter eggs that the Easter Bunny hid in my house. So I apologize. Those guys actually might be joining us for our mock draft right before the draft actually happens. Got to talk to those guys, but we could be seeing a little bit more of them. I apologize. I'm going to blame it on me being extremely tired, and the beers have not helped.
On that brisket. Yeah, and the Vikings do have the 23rd pick. Technically it's the 24th, but they'll be doing the 23rd pick in the first round because of that forfeited Miami pick.
Right. That's it. It sounds like you guys are 24, but yeah, with the one less pick, technically you're moving up one.
Yeah. It's weird. I don't know necessarily what to call it. It's 24th, but we're actually making the 23rd pick. So
yeah,
most people just say it's the 23rd pick.
Okay. All right. Other news in the NFL that we want to hit on before we start getting into some of these edge rushers and D-line prospects, because, man, there are some interesting names. We got a couple of athletic freaks, and we got some guys that fit certain profiles, but I don't know if it's always going to translate. So you got anything else before you want to start hopping into some of these prospects?
No, not really. I mean, we had Jeffrey Simmons from the Titans sign a 4-year deal. He's one of the best kind of interior defensive linemen in the league. A guy that came into the league, didn't get to play his first year because of injury, but it was an investment by the Titans and a good one. He's a really good player. And then also, if you're watching the Joe Mixon saga, police have resubmitted charges against Joe Mixon for threatening a woman, pointing a gun in her face, things like that. So the whole Joe Mixon being jettisoned is definitely back on the table at this point.
Yeah. So I'm going to pose one question that has nothing to do with Joe Mixon, but one thing that I did see. Real quick, yes or no answer. Tyreek Hill retiring in 2025. Him coming out and saying that. Is he posturing already to get a bigger deal because that's when his guaranteed money runs out, is that year? Saying, okay, well, I'm going to be done. I'm going to go somewhere else. Is he already starting to posture? Is this smart business play, or is he legitimately going to retire?
I think it's legitimate at this point. It's tough. It's a smart move by him to like set that hard deadline because you have so many players that are wishy-washy and they'll stick in the year or in the league for extra years and put more wear and tear on their bodies when they are just not the same caliber of player that they are anymore. He's already made, generational life-changing money. And to be able to get out, he's already doing podcasts and stuff on the side. So I think that for him, it is a career transition move where it's going to say, hey, I've already made my bank. I'm good to go. I'm going to save my body. He'll be, in his 30s?
Early 30s.
Early 30s, and essentially retired from professional sports.
Yeah.
It's a dream to be able to play professional sports. It's a dream to be able to be that retired and have that much money at that age and still be relevant in a public space because, like podcasts and things like that. So I think at this point, it's a smart move by him. I didn't read anything into it as far as like, is he trying to posture for another deal or anything like that? But when
as soon as I heard it
last year,
as soon as I heard it, I went and looked. It's like, when is his contract up? He's got a couple of void years after 2025, but 2025 is the last year that he has guaranteed money. So I was like, interesting.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely possible that he could be done then. But it'll be that last year. If it still seems like he is at his peak or has a lot of juice left in the tank, he might want to come back if someone were to offer him another bag.
All right. So let's start moving on into some of these prospects coming out in this draft. I don't know. We're not talking receivers today, but we got some dudes in this D-line and edge rusher group. They're absolutely athletic freaks. So do you want to go with the edge or do you want to go with the D tackles first or your interior defensive line? Because edge linebackers
I think it's going to be a little bit shorter. The edge defenders is a lot more difficult because you're talking about 3-4 ends, 4-3 ends. You're talking about stand-up backers and stuff like that, guys who fit in the linebacker type realm, which might end up shifting to more of that stand-up outside linebacker / edge rusher type of mold. So we're going to try to stick mostly with guys that are going to be considered true edge rushers, a 3-4 edge rusher or a 4-3 end, at least on my part. But interior defensive line is going to be real interesting, especially at the top of the draft. It is tough to find a very good interior defender in the league, someone who's a stalwart for years and years, that 3 tech in particular. And it seems like the best one that we've seen in a while possibly coming out is Jalen Carter, expected to be possibly the number 1 overall pick for a while. And then he's just absolutely tumbled because of off the field issues and then a terrible workout after the fact.
Yeah. And that I think is the biggest part of this is the bad workout. Obviously, this young man had a lot of things going on in his life that he had to take care of outside of football. We're talking about the loss of life for 2 people that were involved in the car racing incident with Jalen, and I can understand why he had a bad workout. That's probably not where his headspace was at. He's not thinking necessarily about working out. He's trying to make sure that he's going to be able to continue to be free and live his life and maybe have the opportunity to go play in the NFL. I have very serious questions for whoever the fuck is representing him, though. Why the hell did you let him go out there if you knew that this was a possibility that he wasn't going to be able to make it through the workouts? That is a bad job by an agent, allowing your client to go out there and have his draft stock fall, considering all of the things that have been going on with this young man's life.
Yeah,
I don't understand that process at all.
It's a real interesting choice. That's to be completely honest, when you watch the tape, he is absolutely phenomenal on the field. But all the stuff that is going on right now, it does kind of smell like one of those extreme busts could potentially be happening here. Jalen Carter, it seems like it's tough. So the charges and stuff against him, they're still misdemeanors. Mm-hmm. So it's not, I don't want to say it's not that big of a deal because obviously there was a loss of life, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal for his life or his professional career. It's obviously a knock that's going to take you from potentially being the first overall pick down in the first round, but he's still being talked about as a top 10 first round pick. And now it is more just like, is there a maturity issue? Which if there is, cool, there's coaching staffs there in those first 10 picks, whether it is Pete Carroll with the Seahawks or Dan
Campbell
or Dan Campbell. Yeah. Dan Campbell with the Lions, who would be phenomenal role models for this guy. And they've got the locker rooms that will teach him how to be a professional. But some of the stuff scares me. I mean, yes, his combine workout, his leadership and agents and stuff like that shouldn't have let him go out. You have plenty of guys that won't go and do a combine workout. They won't do a pro day workout. They're just going to let they're going to take their visits and let their film speak. But even then, apparently some of his interviews haven't been phenomenal. So there's a lot of question marks surrounding him, but it's just like when you put on the tape, he looks fantastic. So there's got to be something there. And there are some positive stories about him going out there and paying for food for guys on the team that didn't have any money and things like that, and doing good things like a brother would do for his teammates. It's just there's a lot of question marks with him. It's going to be interesting. Someone might get an absolute steal for from again a guy who could be a number 1 overall pick to somewhere down in the lower part of the first 10 picks now. So I'm not sold though. Just like some of the stuff I didn't think was a big deal initially. And then now looking back, I'm like, it kind of smells like this could be bust potential. Like he could go down a really bad road really quick.
Yeah. I mean, you turn on the tape, this kid jumps off the tape. He's everywhere. Even last year when they had just a dominant defensive line and he was a rotational piece, he jumps off the film every time he's out on the field. He has the physical abilities. I think that the workout was a product of not being in the right headspace and not working out because he had other things going on. The maturity issues are possibly a big factor though. We've seen guys come into the league who have immense physical talents. Their tape looks good, but they have maturity issues and they can't get it right. And I hope for his sake that is not the case, that all of this gets worked out. He goes and balls out, but it is a very serious question mark now on what you're dealing with from a character standpoint. And I think there's going to be a lot of teams and GMs that he's off their board because of that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not off the board. It depends on the board ranking system. They tier a lot of guys on these boards and say all these guys in tier 1 are blue chip, can't miss. And I think he moves out of the blue chip for people. And he'll be gone by the time that other teams are picking outside of that tier. But either way, moving on from Jalen Carter, there's been a lot of talk about Jalen Carter out there if you watch any sort of pre-draft shows or anything like that and where he's going to go because of his situation. And people can't really get a consensus on it other than he'll probably still be a top 10 guy. One guy that another people can't get consensus on is Kalijah Cansey, because Kalijah Cansey is a athletic freak. He absolutely blew up the combine. He doesn't have these off the field issues or anything like that. The one thing that he does have a problem with is his size, but he still showed up decently sized there at the combine, taller than I expect him to be. I believe it's 6'1", 281 for Cansey, which is still undersized for an interior defensive lineman, especially like a 3-tech or something like that. But his pass rush skills are just phenomenal. And then when you come out undersized out of Pitt, people are obviously going to compare you to Aaron Donald.
And that's a tough comparison for anybody.
And I don't think that he has that strength profile as an Aaron Donald. I think that he profiles way better to a John Randall if you're talking about an undersized defensive lineman. His pass rushing skills are phenomenal. It's not about the strength for him. It's about the movement and stuff. So Kalijah Cansey is real interesting because I've seen this guy going as high as around that top 10 pick area all the way to the back end of the first round. And it's because of the question marks of his size. The guy profiles really well to be a 4-3 3-tech, but some teams might be willing to use him as a 3-4 edge.
Yeah, you put him out as a 5-tech.
Yeah, and that's where I think that he could really be successful. It's just most teams that run that 3-4, they want 3 big meaty dudes up there. I mean, you're not going to get that out of Cansey. But also when you're talking about a 3-tech on a 4-3 team, you still want him to have a little bit more than what Cansey's bringing. No matter what, he's going to be undersized for the role. It's just, can he hold up like a John Randall, like an Aaron Donald, who are technically undersized for those positions, but still were outliers and fantastic at what they did.
Both Hall of Famers. Like, I love the comparison that you had there with John Randall. I didn't even think about that. But those are penetrating 3 techniques that could. Now, I don't know if John Randall could have slid out to a 5 technique. They didn't run a whole lot of 3-4 back in John Randall's day. It was a lot of 4-3 or 4-6 bear fronts and different things like that.
John Randall actually is a mentor for Kalijah Cansey. They hang out a lot. He trains with John Randall.
That's a great guy to be following. Yeah. So I like Kalijah Cansey. He's not going to be Aaron Donald. I don't know that we're going to see another Aaron Donald for quite some time. That he is just ungodly top 3 probably defensive players in the history of the NFL, in my opinion. He's that good. But I think Kalijah Cansey is going to bring a lot to a team. I went through and I did a mock draft following the space with the off the clock guys. And I had Kalijah going at 10 to the Eagles because they just lost a lot of depth on their defensive line.
Yeah, he's mocked to the Eagles quite a bit. Whether it's with that first pick or if he lasts all the way late in the first round with the Eagles taking him there as well.
All right. So, I mean, I like Kalijah Cansey, but we've talked about him in the past. He's not
a guy that I would be upset about the Vikings taking either. I'm all about that. I think that he would fit in. I want to build through the trenches, and with the multiple front that Brian Flores is going to be playing, I think he could find ways to use a talent like Cansey.
All right. So
4'6",
yeah, God, it's insane. Insane for an interior guy. Okay, so outside of those guys, who do you like for the interior defensive line that maybe we're not talking about a ton, that we should talk about a little bit more?
I'm going to say one name, and I dislike him. I just want to throw this out. Brian Brzee is talked about as a first-round pick. I am a big-time anti-Brian Brzee fan. He is extremely physically gifted for his size, 6'5", 298, and he looks like tapioca pudding when he's on the field. Like, he is going to be just a average, like never special, average interior defensive lineman, and he's getting taken in the first round, and I don't know why. He shouldn't be. He doesn't have that sort of a talent. I've seen mocks of him going to my Vikings, and I want to cry. I hate it. Very sad about that. Other guys, though, that I do like, Keanu Benton out of Wisconsin, I'm a big fan of. 6'4", 309. I think that he has slowly had his stock rising to the point that I've seen him mocked a couple times in the first round. He's a good versatile defensive tackle with that sort of a height. He can split times between A and B gap. He needs to fix his hand placement. He'll have tight hands, low on the pad level. But he is rising on most people's boards. Expected to probably be a second-round pick, and I've seen some people going Keanu Benton over Brian Brzee in the first round. If you're looking for a big tackle, probably more profiles to a nose tackle in the NFL. Potentially could be one of those 3-4 ends. And then if we're going for later guys, like later guys, Javon Dexter Sr. I like out of Florida, 6'6", 310. And my favorite, not necessarily sleeper, but guy that I really like in around 5 or so is Gerard Clark, out of Coastal Carolina. This guy is, excuse me, absolutely profiles out to be a nose tackle in the league. And I think he's getting slept on because he went to Coastal Carolina, a smaller school. But the guy is 6'4", 334, just a mammoth of a man, but real strong. He showed out big time in the Senior Bowl. And if you look at his film, he was very dominant out there in Coastal Carolina. It's just got to be a transition to the NFL, and a higher level of play. But I think as a 5th round pick or something like that, he's absolutely someone that you can work with and develop.
Okay. So one guy that I like that I've talked about in the past, because we don't necessarily get this type of player too much because everybody in the NFL is going a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter. They want quicker. If you want the fucking space eater, though, I don't know if there's a better space eater guy in this draft than Mozzie Smith, man. I've seen him just eat up dudes, and it pisses me off because he's a Michigan guy, but he just eats up space. I think he could be great as a 0 or a 1 technique, 0 in a 3-4, and a 1 as in a 4-3. He's going to eat up multiple blocks. He's a guy that I would love for the Browns to get because we need some help in the defensive front. Now, we already got a guy who, is more of a space eater, but if you need a guy to help kind of solidify your run defense in the middle, Mozzie Smith could be a dude. Very, very strong. I mean, he is insanely strong and large. I think, God, what was his measurables?
323, 6'3".
Yeah, 323, 6'3", and still able to run a 4.85 at that size. I think he could be a really good, round 2 pick, mid-round 2 pick for teams that are looking to, bolster the interior and, get some run stop with their D line.
Yeah, I think Mozzie Smith profiles well to Dalvin Tomlinson, who you guys just kind of brought in. He's that big space eater. He's not necessarily going to have a huge amount of pass rush. Great in the run game. But there's a lot of comparisons here as well to a Dontari Poe, which I've seen get brought up, which makes a lot of sense. He's another guy that is a 2nd round pick that gets mocked more recently in the 1st round, late 1st round, as one of those big interior guys. He's the guy that I definitely like as well. I'm a big fan of, and I'm really glad that you didn't say the guy that I thought you possibly were going to say there as far as big space eater, and that's Siaki Ika, who initially I really liked because going into this year, he was considered to be a 1st round pick out of Baylor. The guy is 6'3", 335, and he looks like he weighs about 400 pounds. He is a big ass fucking Samoan dude. And in previous years, he was really good, but it seems like in his college career, every year he gets a little bit worse. It is another one of those Brian Brzee type situations where the guy, Brzee is a physical specimen in a different way than Siaki Ika is. Siaki Ika is just a gigantic mammoth man. And it seems like he just doesn't do a whole lot anymore. He didn't look good in his workouts in the combine either. It is just one of those set it and forget it type of guys out there, which I think Siaki Ika is going to go in the 2nd round. He, to me, is more of a 3rd or 4th round guy at this point because
I don't think he's anything more than a rotational piece. You get him in front of 1st, maybe a 2nd down.
Yeah, you're setting him out there to hopefully receive double coverage or two blockers on him just because he's so big. That's the only benefit that you're getting from him, but you're not getting pass rush, and you're not even really getting that great of like run stuffing ability or anything like that from him. Now, obviously, you could grow and develop him in the NFL. There was some stuff earlier on in his college career that I was excited about, and I really thought, hey, this is a great interior guy to have. I mean, he cut weight for the combine. The guy was like 360 in college, and now he's down to 335. And I don't know if that's a smart move necessarily, because earlier on in college, he was way better.
Yeah. Well, and losing all the weight did not help out with a ton of the measurables, like in terms of his testing grades, did not test well by any means. Like, did not run good. I don't think he jumped well either. Not super explosive. He's a big body. He's a guy that just eats space, but is not going to give you, a ton of run stops, where I think you can see a Mozzie Smith, who's also that big guy, who's going to at least create run stops. I don't know that Mozzie's ever going to be a guy who's going to create a lot of pressure from the inside, but I like Mozzie's ability to shed and make a run stop more than I like Siaki Ika's. So
100%. 100%.
all right.
You willing to jump over to the edge guys now?
Let's do it, because we got a lot of edge guys in here. We got some guys that are edge D-line guys as well that look like they're going to profile really well as maybe a backer. They could, I don't know if some of these guys, I don't think they can play with their hand in the dirt, but there's a lot of position versatility with a lot of these edge guys that it'll be interesting to see how they get utilized.
Yeah, if you need a 3-4 or a 4-3 edge, if you need a linebacker that can come down and play edge, if you need a guy that can play defensive end and rotate in as a 3-tech on passing downs or something like that, there's a lot of options in this draft. End and defensive end and edge is probably one of the deepest, if not the deepest, positions in this draft, because you're finding really solid guys way late into the rounds, like easily into the 5th, 6th round sometimes. So starting off, Will Anderson Jr., he's pretty much considered the top pick in the draft now. Yeah. After the Jalen Carter situation, you're going to expect him to be the first defensive player off the board or the first non-quarterback off the board. Guys has been a stud his whole career there at Alabama.
Yeah, he's fantastic, man. And you talk about measurables. This guy's got everything that you want. He's long, he's lean, but not so lean that he can't hold up and get a run stop. I mean, 6'4", 253, runs a 4.6, and ultra productive at Alabama. This guy should be, I think, the first defensive player off the board, first non-quarterback to go off the board. He's really special. Like you said, he was right in that conversation with Jalen Carter. I think the off-the-field issues with Jalen Carter are going to drop him, but we don't have any of that with Will Anderson Jr. So I love this kid. I think he's going to be really good, and he's going to be an impact guy right away. He's got a profile like some of the DNs that we've seen in the past, but he's one of those guys that, can he play with his hand in the dirt in a 4-3, or is he scheme specific to a 3-4? We want to see him standing up out there as an outside linebacker. It's really going to depend. We haven't seen a ton of him with his hand in the dirt. So,
yeah, I think that he probably profiles to be more of that stand-up guy, more of a 3-4 edge. But at the end of the day, I think he could probably convert down to a 4-3 end if you really need him to. The guy is just multiple enough that and talented enough that I think he's going to be great.
All right,
at whatever you try to put him in at. Coming up next, we got Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech.
I fucking love this kid.
271, athletic freak.
Love this kid.
Some people are a little bit worried that he's so raw because he is just an athletic freak. But the guy has crazy measurables, insane wingspan. He's versatile all across the defensive line. It's kind of like a bigger version of who's the Cowboys defensive end now that I can't think of. That's tiny.
Lawrence. That's talking about the linebacker.
Yeah. It plays
Micah Parsons.
Linebacker Micah Parsons, yeah.
Micah Parsons.
Like Micah Parsons is athletic freak, but he's just a little bit smaller. I feel like Tyree Wilson is like a bigger Micah Parsons almost. I don't think you're going to get Micah Parsons production because I think that guy's a little bit of a unicorn, but Tyree Wilson has all those athletic traits that you're looking for.
Yeah, I really like Tyree, man. He is so fucking big and like just outrageous speed attributes on this guy, considering how big he is. 4.82. Now, for edge rushers, that's not necessarily fast by today's standard, but it's plenty fast enough that this guy perfectly fits as a 4-3 end, I think, rather than being a stand-up guy.
Yes.
This guy is going to look fantastic, opposite of a seasoned pass rusher who can kind of coach him up a little bit, along with a good D-line coach. I think this kid could be really special.
I think he's one of the scarier guys in the draft because he's so fucking wild. Like, you need to almost rein him in a little bit, but what makes him special is just how athletically crazy he is and how much a freak he is that he's kind of untamable at a certain point when he's out there. I like Tyree Wilson a lot. It is just tougher because he is so unbridled that it's tough to see the perfect schematic system fit for him. But someone's going to get a great athletic freak out of him. I think that he profiles really well to what Pete Carroll likes there for his Seattle guys, athletic freaks. So I could see him going down there if they're not going to go after like a Jalen Carter or maybe a quarterback.
So I'm going to move on to a guy. He's going to be a little later in the draft, but another guy who's an absolute athletic freak that is going to need to be in a good room to get a little bit more technique. But Odubaware out of Northwestern, that kid tested off the fucking charts for his size. It was insane. 6'2", 282, runs a 4.49, jumped well, so he is explosive. This kid is one of those physical goddamn freaks, but plays at a Northwestern. Maybe doesn't, I mean, good coaching at Northwestern, but not pro level coaching that you're getting there. I think you get this guy in a good situation where you can have him as a rotational piece to start, could really grow based on his athletic profile, but is still kind of a raw prospect that has the ability to grow into being a weapon.
Yeah, I love Adi Adibari, especially if that combine performance is kind of undeniable how awesome he is. He's another guy that gets mocked into the back end of the first round because, like I said, once we get to pick 20-ish or so, maybe even around pick 15, a lot of the guys fit into that same tier from pick 15 through parts of the third round or even fourth round for a lot of teams. Adibari is, again, a little bit slight, 6'2". I think he profiles well as that hand in the dirt guy where you're going to see him as a 4-3 end or a 3-4 end or a 4-3 tech. Like, I think that he has that sort of scheme positional versatility despite being a little bit smaller, where again, like for my Vikings, I like to think through that purple lens. He could play a 3 or end for us in a 4-3, or if we go to a 3-4 front, he's an easy interior pass rush type of guy to put out there. Multiple options with him. That multiplicity of positional value for him is something that is definitely going to help him out. Again, he's a guy that we've seen mocked into the late first round in some scenarios. Definitely more so when it was right after the combine because the numbers that he put up were absolutely incredible. But a guy that is probably going to be a second round pick, and I would expect a early second round pick.
Yeah, the athletic profile is something that's going to have every GM salivating. Like, look at all the things that this kid can physically do. If I have faith in my coaches, especially my D-line coach, this is a kid that I can get in the second round that can be an absolute weapon and a fucking unit for my defensive team. But he's still a little raw. So you got to have that faith.
Well, the guy I thought that you were talking about initially was Miles Murphy because he's another one of those guys that's a little bit of an athletic freak, and his stats out there are really good as far as like he's gotten 76 pressures over the past 2 seasons, but he is extremely unrefined. He doesn't have pass rush moves. He's just winning on his sheer athletic ability, and this is a guy that needs a good year or two under a good defensive line coach to teach him how to actually play the position because right now he's just going on pure athleticism. It's not refined at all for the NFL, which could be a really good thing, but we've seen a lot of guys bust with that sort of potential as well, where it's like, hey, you're just an athletic freak and you're able to get by on that, but now you got to put it between the ears and put it out on the field, and they're not able to link that up as well when you're getting on the pro level. Miles Murphy, again, a guy that is typically going pick 20 or later in the first round. I haven't really seen him fall out of the first round just because of the ceiling that he has. But a late first round guy.
All right.
Any thoughts on Miles Murphy?
I like Miles Murphy, but you kind of laid it out there. Like, he's an athletic freak, but he doesn't have a ton of weapons right now. It's really his physicality, and can you win with pure physicality against NFL caliber offensive linemen? No, you can't just constantly win with that. You're going to have to develop some pass rush moves, something. He's got all the physical traits, but he hasn't refined any of that.
Mhm.
So I think he's a guy that he's going to need a year or two, just like you were saying, to get into a system, be a rotational piece, and then he will eventually come into his own. But I don't know that this is a guy that I'm like, oh, this is a guy I need on my team because of his athletic traits. Those athletic traits are good, but when you start diving into all the things that he can and can't do, the things that he can't, to me, outweighs the things that he can, because the things that he can do are all physical. I have not seen him actually develop his game a lot, though.
Yeah. A couple other guys that very commonly mocked in the first round: Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa, 6'5", 272.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about Lucas Van Ness. We just talked about, having a ton of physical traits, but maybe not so much, mentally prepared and develop your game. Lucas Van Ness to me is the exact opposite. Does not have excellent physical traits.
I mean, he's a big dude. He looks like Hercules. That's why he's got the nickname.
He's a big guy, yes, but is he going to put it all together? Because he's a guy that doesn't necessarily generate a ton of pressures, really good in his run defense, excellent edge setter, but is he going to generate enough pressures? He's super, super smart. Like he's got every intangible mental makeup wise that I would want, but does he get enough done with the college production to say, okay, this guy is one of those physical freaks? I mean, he ran well at 4.58 is what I see here. So that's a good test. Is that what the official was?
Yeah,
that's good. But he didn't generate a lot of sacks with his time.
He's not a guy that has the bend that you hear about and stuff like that for the edge position. Like you said, he's a good run setter. He did have a good pass rush win rate at 18.8% there in college, which is solid, and a very solid pass rush grade overall. But he's not the guy with the tools and stuff like that and the bend that you expect to see out of these more athletically gifted and freaky edge guys. He is someone that you can go out there and you can be confident in playing, I think, in a 4-3-N type of system, opposite of one of those freaky edge rushers, where teams obviously are going to have to pay attention to him, but you're not going to be expecting to have two guys shooting off the edge where you might lose or break contain or coverage or something like that of a more mobile quarterback. He's just not that type of guy. You'll still get sacks out of him. I think he's going to be a 3 to 5 sack type of guy a year on a really good year, or opposite of one of those incredible athletic freaks. You're going to see him getting closer to maybe the double-digit sack level every now and then, but he's not one of those types of edge rushers. It's a different type than a lot of the guys that we've been talking about, who are just the insane athletic guys who are there hunting the quarterback.
I mean, he's not unathletic, but he just, and you said it, that bend, that being able to have that ankle, knee, hip flexibility to get that bend to dip and get around the edge, he just does not necessarily have that. It reminds me a lot of a Jadeveon Clowney type. He didn't test as well as Jadeveon Clowney did, but Clowney didn't have a great bend, like excellent in the run game, great at setting the edge, can get there with pressure coming from the other side, but never really lived up to being that guy who was going to just generate double-digit sacks every year. And that's kind of where I would profile Lucas Van Ness. Now, that's not a bad career by any means. No. Jadeveon Clowney is a great career, but it falls short of what expectations were for Jadeveon Clowney. And I think that we could probably see, if somebody is like Lucas Van Ness is my premier pass rusher, I think you're missing the mark there.
Yeah. I feel like we get a lot of like vintage or old school retro style players that are coming out of Iowa this year, guys that are kind of making me feel nostalgic with things. I mean, we talked, last week, tight end, Renus of Dallas Clark coming out of there. Lucas Van Ness makes me think of a Kyle Vanden Bosch or even a Howie Long, if we want to go back that far. You're more traditional 4-3 defensive ends that we used to see in the old school NFL. A guy that we're going to talk about, I believe, next week, Jack Campbell at linebacker, reminds me of that Jack. Super traditional linebacker. And I love, for today's NFL, maybe not as much, but I absolutely love the type of player that he is, because he's the premier linebacker that I grew up with. of what you're looking for out of a stud.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what we're getting out of a lot of these guys from Iowa is that I don't want to say that they're 10 or 15 years behind, but they're bringing out these guys that were
Did you watch
prototypical.
Iowa's offense this year? They're 10 or 15 years behind.
Yeah, but I mean, these are guys that, I mean, Van Ness would be one of the top picks overall if we're talking 10 years ago as a stud defensive lineman,
Right.
and he's still going to go first round. It is just he could go anywhere from pick 12 to pick 25. And so that's not to say at all that I dislike Lucas Van Ness. It's just his game is more of a classic 4-3 end type of game, and it's not the big pass rusher that you're kind of expecting to get from one of those top 10 overall picks.
All right. So another guy mocked in the first round is the guy that, I mean, this is the physical freak profile of all physical freak profiles. You know exactly who I'm talking about.
Yep.
Because I don't know that we've seen a guy with this type of profile in quite some time. And Nolan Smith has the opportunity to be an absolute fucking problem. But I also see the potential for bust because that guy, that super ultra speed but light guy, can have problems when he gets matched up with somebody who has really, really good technique.
Mm.
If he can win right off the bat with speed, Nolan Smith is an absolute fucking problem. You put him against an a tackle with an excellent vertical set, though. Does he have the power? Can he convert speed to power at that size at the NFL level? I don't know. The physical makeup is ungodly, what he can do, but does it translate to anything other than a speed rusher off the edge?
I think the type of guy that he is, because if you listen to him in his interviews and things like that, I think that he will absolutely be successful in the NFL. He's going to be an emotional leader for a defense. He's going to be one of those team captains. He's your Ray Lewis type of motivator on your defense, just from the college level, the way that he's acting. I think that he's going to be phenomenal for any defense, just morale building, getting the guys together and focused. That alone, he's going to be elite level at. And then as a wide edge / with a 3-4 outside linebacker, because he is undersized. He's gonna.
I don't think he can play 4-3. He's gonna have to be. If you put him in a 4-3, he's an outside linebacker in a 4-3 because he can't play the edge. And I think you waste his physical traits if you put him as an outside linebacker.
Yeah, he's definitely not a hand in the dirt type of guy. But that's a lot of the reports are saying that Georgia asked him to do a lot of engagement with that offensive line in run support, which wasn't utilizing his talents as much as it could as a pass rusher. So he was a willing participant in that, where he would come down and have that. He had a super high run defense grade because he would come down on offensive linemen and then disengage with them in order to get the tackle. Whereas they didn't ask him to do pure pass rush stuff very much. And he's got the quickness and he's got the moves for it. So I think that he could develop into a very good 3-4 defensive end. Worst case, he's a solid 3-4 run defender and a huge motivational boost, difference maker type of team captain on your defense. So he's a guy that I really like. He's kind of one of my draft crushes as a guy who, again, I've seen mocked as high as in the top 10 or going into the second round in some places.
Yeah. So does he remind you, because this is who he reminds me of, and you're going to be very familiar with this guy, Anthony Barr. He's more physically gifted than Anthony Barr was, but was kind of in that tweener spot, could give you some pass rush. Then he was a little bit as outside 3-4 or a 4-3, and it didn't necessarily work.
Anthony Barr, he was taller, but he was still lean like this. He was built because Anthony Barr was a running back when he started off in college and then ended up transitioning into that linebacker role. Anthony Barr was super good at blitzing in the middle, A-gap developed stuff. But coming off the edge, he never really showed a ton and never developed into that. He does remind me of that, maybe not, like I said, as that emotional leader and stuff on the defense. Not that Barr was a bad guy at that. I mean, he was team captain and wore the dot out there. But I could see that comparison, except for I just like the way that Barr ended up fitting into the 4-3 as an outside linebacker a little bit better. Nolan Smith, I think if he went to a 4-3 team as an outside linebacker, he would probably be a much closer one-to-one comp to Barr for me. But I think that he's much better suited, and teams are going to use him on the edge way more.
Yeah, he's going to be a 3-4 guy. Like I don't think anybody drafts him if they're not thinking 3-4 defense. But I mean, the physical traits are ungodly.
Yep. And another guy who's great physical traits, a little bit lean, a little bit smaller, Will McDonald out of Iowa State. This is a guy that is very much so fringe first round. He gets mocked a lot to guys like the Kansas City Chiefs and stuff like that. They're late in the first round. A guy that I really like. He's got to pack on more weight, man. At 239, because to me, he feels like he could be a very good 4-3 end, and that he's got the positional flexibility to be a 3-4 outside guy. But I kind of like him with his hand in the dirt a little bit. So I think he can do both. It's just he's got to pack on some pounds.
Yeah, so this actually, you brought up the mocks. That's exactly where I mocked Will McDonald. He was the last pick in the first round, 31 to the Chiefs, because I think it makes sense. They're going to need to replace a Frank Clark, and could do some of those things. This is a kid that I like, but he is lean. He's going to have to pack on weight. We have a couple of guys who are like next level, top tier, but we've got a ton of guys mid first through all the way through the third, talking to edge rushers who could be productive in the right systems and who are going to be a little bit more specific in what they do. We don't have a ton of those blue chips that you can put them anywhere, like a Micah Parsons or a Will Anderson Jr. that we talked about earlier. And this is one of those guys. He's going to have to be in the right system, have some support as well. But late first round, that's exactly where I have him mocked going to the Chiefs.
It's interesting with him because we did not get to see his capabilities as much as you would expect in college. In true pass rush sets, he had a 92.6% pass rush grade, where he's able to just win with that explosiveness and that quickness off the edge. Iowa, though, typically in base sets and everything, use him as a 4-tech and a 5-tech. At 236, that is not the size guy that you want playing that far in on the line. And it was kind of a misuse of him. He's definitely a 3-4 guy. Like I said, I think he can get his hand in the dirt because he was asked to do that. And so he's got the capability for it. If you want to run him as a 4-3 end off the edge, I would be putting him definitely wide 9 as a 4-3 type of edge guy and use that explosiveness. Otherwise, he profiles well as a edge rusher for a 3-4 as well, where you can get some that positional flexibility where if you want to bring him down hand in the dirt on some snaps, you can, but with a stand-up outside guy just ringing off a quickness, I think he's completely got that within his skill set. It's just if he goes to a team that is primarily 4-3 and primarily 4-3 base, he's going to have to put on 15, 20 pounds at least in order to really be competitive if he's going to have his hand in the dirt.
Yeah, 239. I mean, so we'll call him 240. 240 is too lean at the NFL in a 4-3 spot. You want to see that guy 265. Like, that's where I want my – that seems like a good weight. Now, you got some guys that are bigger. You got some guys that are a little leaner. But most guys who are playing with their hand in the dirt in a 4-3 are in that 260 range. And he's a good 20 pounds away from that. So he's definitely going to have to pack on a little bit of weight. Hopefully it does not decrease his ability to be quick and be fast like he was, because he ran Jesus Christ, what did I got here? A 4.61. That's great for an edge rusher. If you can continue to keep him in the 4.6s with the extra 20 pounds, kid could be really, really good.
Yeah, and it's not even about that. The 40-yard speed for me is the 10-yard split.
It's a 10-yard split.
Explosive off that stuff.
It was the second fastest 10-yard split behind Jesus Christ, I just forgot it. Smith, behind Nolan Smith, second fastest 10-yard split out of the whole group. So he's very, very good in that short distance. So any other guys that you like later in the draft, some sleepers for the folks?
Sleepers. Oh boy. So it's tough because I'm sitting here just rolling through my list of guys and I'm like, these are all guys that could still go in the second round that I really like. So if you're doing a lot of mock drafts on the PFF mock draft simulator, that was really weird to me. the way that they have him ranked and where he's being taken is Carl Brooks at a Bowling Green. All right.
Okay.
I love Carl Brooks at a Bowling Green. I don't know that he is like, if you are considering him as an edge guy, he is a 3-4 edge. He's big enough to be a 3 tech in most schemes. Highly productive, great at the Senior Bowl, and for some reason he's getting mocked in like the I think he's the 80th overall player on PFF's big board, but he gets taken in like the 5th or 6th round a lot of times in the mock drafts, average draft position. I love Carl Brooks. I think he's going to be awesome because he does have that flexibility. He fits best with a 3-4 team that might put it on a 4-man line every now and then as an interior guy. 69 pressures last season alone. It's fantastic in one season for a guy. I like Derek Hall out of Auburn. One of the really later guys for me though is Viliami Fehoko out of San Jose State, excuse me. Power guy, 6'4", 276. He could definitely play as a 4-3 or a 3-4 end in either of those. He can pack on a little bit more weight if you really want him to be that 3-4 end guy, not as much of an edge guy in a 3-4, but as a defensive end in a 4-3 as well. He looks pretty damn good.
All right. So I'm going to bring up one guy that it hits a little close to home for both of us. But Andre Carter II out of Army. We are both Army veterans. And for the longest time, you go to Army, you stay there long enough, you're not going to the NFL. That was always kind of you were going to join the Army. You were going to go in, you're going to be an officer. You're going to go be a lieutenant and you're going to get lost on a land nav course. That was what was going to happen when you went to, Army or Navy or Air Force. But a couple years ago, they allowed these players, if they were able to be drafted, if they were drafted, they could go and they could do their time in the NFL. And as soon as their time in the NFL was done, they were going to have to go back and fulfill their obligation to the Army or whatever service that they were a part of. This kid is insane, though. He is a height, weight, speed guy that I think can be an interesting prospect, and I hope he makes it onto an NFL roster and he gets to try to live out that dream. But
he absolutely will.
6'6", runs a 4.6, 256. This is another guy that I think has position flexibility. He could go out. I don't know that we saw a ton of him as a stand-up guy based on what we see out of Army most years, but I think he could be a stand-up guy, and I think he could be a 4-3 end and be an interesting prospect. I'm not going to say he's going to be ultra productive, but the length alone allows you to drive linemen back towards your quarterback. He may not get a ton of sacks, but I think he's going to generate a lot of pressures with his length. I hope this kid gets a shot, and like you said, we expect that he will. And I love the fact that the services are allowing these guys that have this special talent to be able to go and play in the NFL instead of having to fulfill their obligations and then trying to go back and play. Because at a certain point, the Army's going to wear and tear on your body. We both know that. He's not going to have to deal with that. He'll deal with the wear and tear of the Army after the wear and tear of the NFL.
Yeah. So the thing with Andre Carter, he was mocked as a late first rounder up until maybe a month and a half ago. The problem with Andre Carter is that he was in a service branch academy. All right. And let me break this down. Not that being a service branch academy is bad, but again, the guy's 6'6", 256. Now, anyone that knows anything about the military, we have height, weight standards. We have athletic standards and stuff like that for PT tests, stuff like that. Also, when you are committed to the military, you cannot be a full-time athlete. This is not possible. You have to commit yourself to a lot of other things. He was not able to train all year round. This is well documented from him and people looking into him. So being in the weight room year round, not a thing that's really possible. The guy's 256 at 6'6". All right. He looks, when you look at him, like a twig. The guy has so much more mass that he can put on his frame, and he wasn't able to. Now, in the military, they have tape tests and stuff like that. If you get too heavy or whatever, theoretically at 6'6", 256 is right about his maximum of what he can be. And that's skinny for a guy of that height because their height weight standards are fucking stupid.
Yes,
All
they
right. They're
are.
real
Thank
bad.
you.
Like you have guys who are extra thick like me, but I'm very dense. All right. People, when they say how much, or if I ask them how much do I weigh, they'll be like, oh, 230, 220, something like that. And I'll be like, nah, I'm 250. They're like, how the fuck is that? You weigh 100 pounds more than me. And I'm like, because you're a little bitch. But also, I've got dense muscle mass. All right. It is heavy, dense muscle mass. And yes, I'm thick and I'm voluptuous and I'm beautiful for that, but I'm dense. All right. And so when it comes to weight standards in the Army, I was getting taped every time, not a
Me
problem.
too.
But when you have a different body composition than a guy that they use as an average, it just doesn't work out well. And he has to conform to those standards. And yes, we did, Amber. I just saw this. Mike brought up that Tiger did drop.
Yeah, Tiger did drop out. This is very sad. I got Tiger at plus 6,500 odds to win. There was no shot,
Well,
but I took it.
No, I mean, you saw it. Sorry to break from Andre Carter, but you saw it yesterday before they
He
suspended
was
play.
done.
It
He was exhausted.
you could see him having trouble walking.
Yeah,
Like walking up hills and stuff.
that leg is gonna be a problem if they ever allow PGA golfers to ride carts during tournaments.
So
Tiger
he's
could
already
win again.
the senior league. I can't think of what it's called right now. They allow him to use carts, and said that he'll
The
be using a cart
Champions
with
Tour
that.
or whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yep.
Yeah, so he'll dominate that. If he can ride a cart and not have to walk fucking 72 holes, he will be very, very good again.
He's already made it public that he will be using a cart in the Champions Tour.
Oh, yeah,
So,
as he should.
yeah.
And he'll win
But
10 tournaments a fucking year doing it. But let's
probably.
get back to Andre Carter.
Andre Carter, anyways, this is a guy that has so much more mass that he could pack onto his frame. And now that he's going to be relinquishing that need to be part of the Army standards for height weight, he's going to be able to, honestly, this guy could put on 30, maybe 40 pounds and be a fucking Hulk of a man. Still, it's going to take a while to put on that much weight. But if you get him into an NFL weight room on an NFL diet plan, I mean, we saw it with guys like Brian O'Neill, right tackle for my Vikings. He came in real light because he had previously been a tight end and had only had like 1 year at tackle in college before we ended up starting him midway through the year at right tackle. And he ended up putting on like 30, 40 pounds. And it was because he was eating like that 8,000 calories a day. And they were just working the fuck out of him in the weight room. And now he looks like your prototypical right tackle, big type of guy, but more of the athletic build, not the fat build. All right.
Mm-hmm.
The Andre Carter can do the same thing. If he gets into the right system, if he doesn't go to the Arizona Cardinals where they don't have a good weight room and they don't allow them to eat, Andre Carter can fill out that frame, be fantastic. He is a big time pass rusher, awesome as a pass rusher. When he showed up to the Senior Bowl, though, he just looked not undermatched, but he looked out of place because he was so skinny compared to the rest of those guys. And it's just a service branch thing. And I think you're going to see leaps and bounds from him as soon as he's able to train year round, put on the mass that he needs. He's not a guy that you want necessarily hand in the dirt on tackle, but if you're lining him up wide off a tight end or as a 3-4 outside linebacker, guy's going to have a great career. And he's a guy that I think that is going to be a steal for someone in the second round. He could possibly fall to third, but I think second round is probably a good spot for him. And again, he was mocked late first up until a month and a half ago because the expectation is that this guy's going to kind of blow up once he actually is able to put his physical tools to use in the weight room.
Right. Yeah. And the Army's height, weight, tape test standards are just asinine. I mean, I'm 5'7", so I am not a tall man by any means, but I was supposed to weigh 168 pounds. I hadn't weighed 168 fucking pounds since I was a goddamn sophomore in high school. So I was one of those kids, big, thick neck, dense body. Like I was coming in 47, 50 pounds overweight and then getting taped. They're like, oh yeah, you're like fucking 16% body fat. Get the hell out of here. Yeah, I know. Yep. Thank you. I turned it into a game. How big can I get? How much weight can I pack on and still pass the fucking tape test? Because it was ridiculous.
I'll tell you this. So there's one time in my Army career that I didn't have to get taped, and it was on my first deployment when I did a lot of running because I was like, I'm going to see how much weight I can lose, and I just did a lot of cardio. Uh, I'm 6'1". I got to 205 pounds, which is just under
Jesus
the
Christ.
tape requirement for that. I got counseled. I got a written counseling after my tape test because I looked sick, according to my leadership. They said that I looked sick, like I should have been in a camp in Nazi Germany or Nazi control areas. They're like, you don't look good at all. And I was like, I feel great. I'm running a lot. And they're like, no, that's not you. You do
Nah,
not look
bro.
good.
Put some fucking weight
And
back
I was
on.
like, I'm just barely skirting by the Army standard, though. How can I not be okay? And they're like, no, don't fucking do that. So I went back to what I was doing before and mixed in a lot of weightlifting and absolutely none of the black water in the veins to get real big after that. So I left that deployment looking fucking good, but
Yeah.
haven't been
God.
there in a minute.
Deployments
I
will do
was
that for you,
I
brother.
was about
They will make you
230
look
when I
real
got done
good.
with that and fucking cut.
Yeah.
But anyways, Army
He-
standards can be pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a good find later in the because you were talking second. I worry that he's going to fall a little farther, but I think he's
It's
going to be a
possible.
steal for somebody. I think he's absolutely going to be a steal. Any other guys you want to talk about edge rushers, edge rusher wise before we bounce out of here?
I'm going to throw a couple names out here. These are
Okay.
guys that every once in a while get mocked in the first round, but these are guys that you're going to find in the second and third round who are all in the same class for me that are different based on whatever team that you need. Feliz and Enudike Uzama, fringe first round guy. BJ
That was
Ojolari,
well
fringe first
done.
round guy. Tuli Tuipulotu, I'm not as big of a fan of him, but he
I
gets
like
mocked
him.
in the second round. And I think he's more of a third round guy. Nick Herbig, I'm not a big fan of based on his size and in the way that he played in college, but he's probably going to go third, maybe fourth. Isaiah Foskey, I have seen high in the second round. He can go anywhere as far down as the late third, early fourth. Isaiah McGuire is a guy that's going possibly fourth round up to the second round. And that's when we're going to start getting into those other guys that I was talking about earlier, like a Carl Brooks and a Derek Hall. These are all guys that, again, we're talking all the way out into the fourth round. You should see these names possibly available and feel really good about getting them. These are guys that are going to be contributors day one and probably starting year 2, year 3 for a lot of these teams. And you're going to feel good about it. Like, this is a very, very good draft.
Tons of depth. Tons of depth.
I'm going to say a guy, Keon White out of Georgia Tech. He's the 120th ranked defensive end, and he's getting mocked late first in some of these draft picks. All right. He's another one of those athletic specimen freaks, 6'5", 285, big fucking dude. He needs a little bit of development, but he's a guy that you can get maybe in the 5th round or maybe in the 1st round, depending on if a team falls in love with him. That's how deep this defensive end class is.
All right, brother. Well, I got no other prospects to talk about. We've kind of hit on the majority of the guys that I wanted to talk about. Get a couple takes. So, are you ready to get out of here and enjoy the rest of your Easter?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like I might actually have a picnic hike to go on or something. I don't know. I'm getting updates as we go, but yeah, I gotta go do something. I also have to take a fat piss.
Very nice. My meat
lot.
is currently at 195 degrees, so
Nice.
getting ready to pull that bad boy out here pretty soon.
You're gonna let it rest for a little bit.
Oh yeah, I gotta rest for an hour at least. Whenever you're cooking a brisket, make sure you gotta let that bitch rest.
You got the cooler set up?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
What are you cooking on? A regular grill or a smoker or like a Traeger? Or?
So it's actually really cool grill. So it's a char griller, not a sponsor, could be.
Mm-hmm.
It is a gravity fed charcoal grill. So I set the temperature and then it will adjust the amount of charcoal that comes in, amount of air that it pushes in with the fan to give me that charcoal flavor. I also added some wood chips, wood chunks to go in there as well. So it's a nice little combo grill. No gas. That's what I got the Blackstone for. I got the flat top. But I love cooking with charcoal. I'm not a gas guy, and I wasn't going to spend the extra $500 for the Traeger. So this was a fantastic compromise. Give me the gravity fed charcoal.
God, in like 2016, 2017, I bought the smallest Traeger available, and it was still $500. And that thing has been killing it for me still. It just sucks because, again, it's so small. So it's like, oh, you want to cook 2 racks of ribs? Hopefully they're small. Like, very small cooking surface, but it cooks things so fucking good. And Daddy don't have no dents in his bank account, so he's about to go fucking buy one of those that's about $1,000, so I can be like, I've got 2 people in my household. We're gonna have 8 racks of ribs, motherfucker. Like, it's going down. Also, we're about to have 2 boys here that are gonna need a lot of food to bulk up. So I'm gonna need the extra space to be cooking and smoking meats. So
very nice.
I think it's not long before we're gonna have an upgrade.
All right. Well, guys, just want to say thank you very much. Anytime you guys spend time with us, we appreciate it. This is the Lineman Lounge. I'm Mike. That is Evo. If you want to interact with the show, go on the Facebook page or the group. The group is probably way more popping than the page. Evo dominates the group, constantly posting stuff in there. Twitter, we're on there as well. We got a blue check mark. I paid Elon his shekels. So we got our little blue check mark. You can check that out at Lineman Lounge. TikTok, Instagram. If you want to watch the show, go to YouTube. You can see these beautiful faces while we bullshit. Or if you just want to listen to our luscious voices, go anywhere podcasts are found. But we're going to get out of here. We're going to be back next week and taking you all the way up to the NFL draft. But guys, I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for spending some time with us. We're getting the fuck out of here. See you.